So this video is inspired by a comment received on a video, obviously. Is this comment negative? Is it critical? I don't like to think of comments like that. I just obviously think of comments as people expressing what they feel. And I've been on this spiritual path coming up to 12 years now in January. I've been through the whole thing. And this is the problem with Advaita Vedanta. I love non-duality, Advaita Vedanta, but these types of problems crop up, which you'll find in this comment. Let's read it and then have a discussion. Here it is. Yes, 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 I am Brahman, Tattvamasi, that thou art, and you still go through all the problems in life. Nisargadatta was an anomaly. You and I can only read this stuff, regurgitate, and pretend we know. Or maybe Nisargadatta was nuts, like, some people believe they are the Christ. All this spirituality hocus pocus is good for passing time or diverting the mind from the reality of life, which is suffering. I understand that person's frustration. I've been through this, through the past almost 12 years. Feeling something was wrong with life. There's suffering in it. It wasn't making me happy. Ran to spirituality. Thought I found the answer through Buddhism and then non-duality. This is it. My true self is infinite, eternal. This will solve all my problems. Started to think, what a waste of time. How is knowing this going to change my life? Because what didn't I do? Spiritual practice, which I'll get to again a bit later. But I understand this person's frustration. That is the problem with non-duality. Takes you straight to the ultimate truth. Many people turn it into a belief system and then they say, what's the point of all this? I still have bills, I still have problems, I'm suffering. That's the problem with non-duality. And why does it resonate with so many people? Because we live in the age of logic, rationality, skepticism. People of the past that just had a faith, love and devotion to a God, honestly, life would have been so much more cruisier in many ways. Because that's the real key. It's not about what we know, it's about how we feel. And when you feel love, service, devotion to a higher entity, make believe or not, whatever we think of these ancient cultures, were they believing in a real God or a fake, the fact remains, and people to this day, that love, serve, devote to a God, Jesus, Krishna, Allah, those that genuinely do it feel the benefits. And that's why they try to spread that message to others. They have good intentions. But again, getting back to that question, obviously they're being sarcastic. Yes, yes, I am Brahman, thou art that, and there's still problems. They also mentioned Nisargadatta was an anomaly, and all we can do is pretend we know. If you think we can only pretend we know that we're Brahman, you haven't done self-inquiry correctly, or you haven't sat in deep meditation and realized this for yourself. This is an open secret to all that are genuinely wanting to see this. What is true about Nisargadatta is what is true about us. I'm not going to do self-inquiry in this video. I've done it to death. But all I'm going to say is, anyone that's done it genuinely will know what I'm talking about. You'll quite clearly see your true self, true with capital letters, non-objective qualities. This reality is happening in 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time. Consciousness is this weird, mysterious thing that's not a thing. Non-objective qualities. That's why no one can give you a concrete answer on what consciousness is. That's why even atheists like Sam Harris or Alex O'Connor, they admit consciousness, who knows? And that's why my money is on Alex O'Connor eventually becoming a follower of Advaita Vedanta. He says a lot of stuff that is related to Hinduism. The fundamental nature of reality is consciousness. What happens if I treat others as another version of myself? I should one day piece together all the clips. He's into Hinduism, whether he realizes or not. That's all I'm going to say. But here's the thing. The whole goal of spirituality is to end your suffering. What are we doing? There's 8 billion people doing 8 billion activities. What are we ultimately doing? Every activity we're doing is to give us happiness here and now, or we're doing activities we don't like to give us happiness in the future. In other words, our whole goal in life is happiness. And why do we suffer? We suffer when what we want is not in alignment with what is happening. I want things to be like this. They're not. I'm suffering. And this isn't to discount suffering. This isn't to say, get over all your problems. Who cares they broke up with you? Who cares you lost your job? Who cares you're suffering from that terrible illness? This isn't about spiritually bypassing. We need to fix the problems at the level that they're at. If your car breaks down, you see the mechanic. If you feel pain in your body, take some medication. If you've got some emotional trauma from childhood, see a counselor. This has nothing to do with spirituality. Fix the problems at the level that they're at. But here's the thing about life. Here's what you realize from spirituality. This is not about happiness. This world is to transact with. Want to start a family? You need a partner. Want a high-paying salary? You need to go to uni or become a really successful entrepreneur. Basically, this world here is for knowledge, entertainment to transact with. Nothing in the fine print says it's here for happiness. Where's all our happiness meant to come from? God, spirituality. If you view God as a fire of happiness, we're a little spark. We're a little spark of God, a little spark of happiness, infinite happiness, trying to seek infinite happiness. So why are we suffering? Because again, our intrinsic nature is wanting happiness, limitless happiness, because that's what we are. But this material world restricts us, limits us. That's why we always have this constant sense of, even if I end my suffering, is there anything more to life? And here's why spiritual practice is so important. This is why I'm always talking about it. I'm a non-dualist, Advaita Vedanta at heart. The fundamental fabric of reality is consciousness, or devotional language, is God. That's the fabric. If reality was a fabric, God, what's happening is you're scrunching, molding it into me, you, a reality. That's all we need to know. The fabric is consciousness, the fabric is God. So why are we suffering? Like I mentioned before, because how we want life to be and how it's presented to us, when it's not in alignment, we suffer. So how do we get out of this suffering? First step, problems in the world, fix them and the best you can. If you can't, what's the next spiritual practice? Surrender. Surrender to the moment and say, look, I've tried everything to fix this problem. I can't. It is what it is. I've just got to let it go. That's the whole key to this. Surrender to life. Realize I don't own anything. What do you own really? I don't control anything. Did you create this world? Did you create this body? Do you create the things that sustain this world or this body? Do you create your thoughts and feelings? You were given all these thoughts. Again, I'm not going to go into a deep dive of all spiritual practice, but what this comes down to is what you're seeking is happiness, because that's the nature of what you are. That's the nature of your soul, but you're trying to seek it in a limited world. And even if you get everything lined up, you're still not going to feel content, because your soul is craving union with God. And when we surrender, devote, serve to a higher power, when we say, God, this is your world, this is your people, this is your body, these are your thoughts, these are your feelings. When you totally surrender, that's going to be a state of inner peace and happiness. Why don't we suffer in deep sleep? We don't have any ownership and control in deep sleep. Why do we suffer in dreams and waking state? Because we feel like we're an entity experiencing space and time. The enlightened still feel like they're an entity experiencing space and time, but the difference is they still see separation, but internally, they've totally surrendered to the moment. That's what it's all about. Look at the state you're in when you're in a state of peace and happiness. You feel this tension. I want this thing. I want this to happen. You get the thing. You feel an expansion, a relaxation. I've got it. I'm happy. You don't desire anything in that moment. What disturbs that peace and happiness? Desiring the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. So how do we get to a state of desirelessness? Total peace and freedom, surrender to the moment. Your true self, as we do in self-inquiry, infinite, eternal, unborn, undying, in a state of peace and bliss at all times. You need to discover that for yourself. What Nisargadatta discovered, what Brahman discovered, we can discover ourselves. Our true self, unborn, undying, what can that do for you in a practical sense? Realize you're not going anywhere. Your true self, unborn, undying, you're always going to feel like you're experiencing something. Whether it's through this person, a future life, a heaven. Existence cannot be gotten rid of. And what are you? You're pure existence. You need to discover that fact for yourself. But what about this egoic self on the practical level? How do we solve our suffering? First of all, acknowledge, yes, the world is suffering. But why am I suffering? Because what I want to happen is not happening. How life is not in alignment with how I want it to be. That's why I'm suffering. And why do we want it to be as we want it to be? Because we think we're a separate person interacting in a separate world. So how do we get out of this? Realize the nature of reality is one and undivided, in essence, appearing separate. And with that higher knowledge, move around this reality in a state of surrender and love. See others as yourself and be patient, non-reactive, understand for them. Serve them if you can. Also remember, God's controlling everything. It's ultimately God's will. So humbly accept when things go how you want it, call it God's grace. Thank you so much, God, for these blessings. Thank you for the experience and the senses you've given me to experience. God's grace, thank you. When things don't go your way, put it down to God's will. Oh my gosh, I wanted it to be this way, it's not. Well, God is teaching me non-reactivity, patience, reminding me not to put my happiness in this world. God's will or God's grace. So basically, that's all there is to it. You can intuit your true self, which is the true self of all, but you also must acknowledge there is an egoic self, this person that's appearing in time and space that appears to be suffering. And while we appear to be suffering, we need to understand why we're suffering. Because our whole goal is happiness. Everything we're doing is for happiness now or in the future. But we need to realize the limitations of this world. Wanting it to be how we want it causes us suffering. When you just surrender and love this reality as yourself, watch how much peace and happiness flood your very being. And again, this is a great talk in a safe, comfortable room. But that's why it's called spiritual practice. We can sit in a safe, comfortable room and go, yes, makes sense. Be loving, patient, non-reactive, surrender. Of course, I'm very calm now. Or perhaps you're not. Some people say I talk too quick and too animated and it's not very calming. But basically, I'm assuming you're calm right now. How do we take this out into the real world? Like I mentioned before, whenever you remember, when you're experiencing something you like, put it down to God's grace. Thank you so much, God, internally. Oh, this is a beautiful experience and you've given me the eyes or ears to experience this, or any senses. When it goes wrong, remember, there's God's will and my will. God's will always supersedes my will. So humbly put it down to God's will and practice patience and non-reactivity. Spiritual practice. It doesn't mean you're going to be perfect. We're not Jesus, we're not Buddha, we're not Krishna. But we can each and every day remember these spiritual practices and slowly move higher and higher towards the goal. And what is the goal? Total freedom from suffering. In a state of peace, bliss, contentment while living. Many religions promise this after death. Advaita Vedanta makes the bold claim, it can be experienced here and now. But you've got to put in the work. Just like anything. Do you want a good looking body? You need to put in work at the gym. Do you want to make millions of dollars? You need to put work into studying or starting your own business. Spirituality is no different. It's not about getting some knowledge and going, oh, why hasn't my life changed? You can read so many books on making money or gymming, but if you're just sitting around reading or watching videos, you're not going to change. And then you're going to say, how has this changed my life? So again, just to review, realize your true self is infinite, eternal, one without a second. That's your true self. That should be a very comforting realization, but also this egoic self in time and space. What's the first spiritual practice, in quotes? Fix problems at the level that they're at. Car breaks down, call the mechanic. Pain in the body, take a pill. Suffering in the mind, see a counselor. You don't have enough money, get a job or get a second job. Practical solutions to practical problems. But don't for 1 minute think this is going to give you lasting happiness. Because this is limited happiness. Once all those problems are fixed, limited. Your soul is craving limitless happiness because, again, picture God like a raging fire of happiness. You're just a little flame. This flame wants limitless happiness because that's its nature. And it can't be found in a limited world. So, practical solutions to practical problems. But if you want happiness, end of suffering, service, devotion, surrender to a God. See others as yourself and serve them. Love them. Be patient, non-reactive. What does that do? Removes all desires eventually. And that peace you experience in deep sleep, you'll experience with your eyes open. I'll end it there. Wish you all the best if the person that left that comment is watching this video. Take care, guys.